let's deep dive these Patriots. Welcome into Arbella Early Edition. I'm Trenni Casey alongside Kayla Burton and our two Patriots insiders, Tom E. Curran and Phil Perry. All three of you were at practice today. Kayla, how did Stefon Diggs look and how was his attitude?
I mean, well, which one first? Attitude? You saw his attitude. He came in, waved to the crowd, waved to the media specifically. This is, he's not really involved in any contact right now. So it's hard to assess how he really looked. But in terms of the non-contact drills, he looked good. He looked competitive out there. He was doing well in and out of his breaks on certain cone drills, cutting fine. The knee didn't seem to be a problem, Phil. I mean, I thought he looked kind of better than what I anticipated him looking.
Yeah, even with all the Instagram videos we've seen over the course of the last few weeks, right, where he looks good as well. But usually real life and Instagram don't exactly match up. Today, I thought the most impressive part of his day was in the individual periods where all the different position groups break off to work with their position coaches. And there was one section during that individual period with the receivers where they're doing some complicated warm-ups essentially, but these guys are running pretty hard and they're cutting and they're going out about 10 yards and back 5 and cutting in a different direction and racing. And looked to me like they're running about full speed. Now it was in short bursts, but he was keeping up with all of those guys, the healthy guys, Tom. And so that to me spoke to his condition maybe more than anything else he did today.
I thought it was astounding. I mean, this is a guy who we didn't think would be available for the beginning of the season. And to see him in May after not taking part in either of the first two OTAs in a full measure, none at all last week, obviously, but to see him take rep after rep after rep after rep in 11 on 11, again, it's non-contact. They're not going full speed. No one's getting taken on the ground, but they are 3/4 to 80% speed. Phil and I went back and forth. I said, they're running pretty friggin' hard there, and they were doing 2 minutes. So he was on the field, Phil's shaking his head. They were on the field for 8, 9, 10 plays, and he wasn't tapping out and taking all of those reps and catching the ball the way an accomplished NFL receiver would. It was, to me, it's astounding because I'm thinking to myself, well, is he going to be ready for the beginning of the year? Is he going to be up to speed at that point? I would be surprised if he isn't available at some juncture during training camp.
Phil, why the...
Well, so the only reason, and we all know that I love to go back and forth and critique everything that comes out of my good friend Tom Curran's mouth. But he did not participate in the what I would say competitive portions of 11 on 11. Like he was out for those with other guys that were limited in dealing with things. Like Jalen Polk hasn't participated in any of these over the 3 media practices that we've seen. He wasn't out there for those. The part of the 11 on 11s that he was out there for, Tom, and you saw it as well as I did, was early in the practice, and it was about 50 to maybe 75% speed. It was not all that competitive.
Felt like 80 to me.
But I'll give you this. It was the hurry-up portion of the practice. So it was play after play after play for that one period of practice.
So the cardiovascular conditioning is there.
And you combine that with, I think, the more explosive stuff that we saw in the individual period that I described. To me, that makes up a good day in May for the guy.
What was your
June?
What was your funny face?
Whenever it
for?
is.
I wish you could. No, I didn't have
he's
a
just,
funny face.
he's splitting hairs as he tends to do. And I'm just trying to make a point that for the people out there who are trying to discern what level of performance Stefon Diggs is at, months ahead of where one would expect. Okay, 75, 80, 85. I don't know why he does it, but we're way down a side road now.
I just want to let the people know, Kayla, when you say astounding, that's a pretty high bar. Astounding's a big word.
Look,
I would go something below that.
I go against Tommy a lot. Tommy, I'm with you on this one. I think you're splitting hairs. Sorry, Phil. You're splitting hairs a little bit. I think looking at him in practice, you just saw the video, right? He's jumping around. He was, 80%, 75% in OTAs. Splitting hairs. I agree with you with that one.
So do you not agree with Tom that maybe he could be ready to go in training camp and possibly as early as the beginning of the season?
He's further along than I thought, Kayla, but to me, I think we do have to see him in pads and just see what it looks like then.
That's what it is. I mean, it's hard, like we said, it's hard to assess him right now because it's non-contact. When you start to hit, when you start to put the pads on, it could set him back. We don't know what he's going to look like. And when that happens, it's going to be the true test to see where Steph Diggs is at.
All right. Well, last Friday, Sports Illustrated's Albert Breer and 98.5 The Sports Hub's Scott Zolak said everything was on the table when it came to handling the Diggs situation, that viral video on the boat, including cutting him.
I sort of think all things are on the table, and I think it's really, to me at least, it's going to boil down to what Steph told Vrabel and how believable it was.
It is on the table that it is being thought of. And it's not just the boat. It's not just the boat. There's some other things that I've heard. That's all. That puts some things in question. Are you all in? Are you all in here?
All right, Curran, you've done some digging on this. Is Diggs cutting him on the table, as both those guys said?
I don't want to refute either guy entirely and say there was never a table that was set up and his name was on it. But as of this morning, I was basically told there is no table and there is no Stefon Diggs on said table. So certainly whatever transpired with Diggs perhaps in the days leading into today with Mike Vrabel, with the team, whatever occurred, whatever his level of participation was today, indicating that he was putting to bed anything or any maybe worries about his commitment. I'm told there's no table now. They're not moving on from Stefon Diggs. It's an OTA, period. He doesn't have to be in the facility. It's impossible to discern exactly what was there. That is not basis enough. What we saw last weekend, a Memorial Day, for the Patriots to divest themselves of the Stefon Diggs business.
Yeah, I am curious if it led to any sort of discipline, like behind closed doors, that maybe we wouldn't hear about. Maybe it's a fine, maybe it's something else, just so you can make that statement, in terms of what you are willing to accept, this new culture that you're trying to establish, even though it is an optional portion of practice. Mike Vrabel is very clear. We want to make sure our guys are making good decisions. So when somebody is apparently not making great decisions, what do you do then? That, to me, is the key question, especially for a guy who looks like he'll be as critical to the operation as he will be and who has star status already. It would be different to punish somebody like, Efton Chisholm, the undrafted rookie from Eastern Washington, versus a guy who has a borderline Hall of Fame career right now. So that, to me, is the most interesting part of this, if he's not going to be cut.
I say this, too. When we look at what he did today relative to the first week, following on a week in which he wasn't here, whether they asked him to stay away or he didn't come, that's a full 180. That's a 540 from where he was. So the full participation, maybe that was, hey, you want to be here? You don't want to be here? We're not seeing that right now. Can we see something from you? And to see that level of participation today, Kayla, certainly indicates a fully on board guy.
I think his attitude coming into practice today was pretty telling. Like, if you know that you're on the line and stuff, I don't know if you're as excited and talking to the media and saying, "What's up, everyone?" Like, I think that was an indication to me that stood out. I also think, to Tom's point, that he was a full participant to a certain degree here today. Definitely silenced the noise a little bit with this whole thing. If he was not at practice, if he were not to be at practice today, I definitely think that on the table conversation would definitely be talked about on 98.5 The Sports.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like whatever Mike Vrabel said to him, it's sunk in with Stefon Diggs, and he doesn't, at least for right now, want to
I just don't think it's just definitely not a coincidence that the two things were interlinked, that level of participation.